Perhaps you should have run at that time.
Yes. In a way, I think that maybe I could have been put in, say, a foster home or whatever, but someplace positive, or that would have given me a better feeling about myself, or given me a better outlook on things.
I'll tell you what, caller, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to go back to the doctor, because I don't think this is something that lay people should fool with. Doctor, will you stand up once again, and if you have something brief that you can help this caller with?
Sometimes people don't work on being incest victims or abuse victims until they reach adulthood, and it's never too late, and the best recommendation that I can give you is probably to go to see somebody who's an expert in this area that can help you work through some of those things. In answer to, or in a statement to your feelings about running away, I think that at times we all want to run away. At times I want to run away, and I'm sure that we all have those feelings. So that some of that is probably pretty normal for all of us.
I might also add, caller, that the person who just gave you that information has a specialty in dealing with the victims of incest and those kinds of family situations. So that advice is to be taken for what it's worth, and it sounds like it's worth quite a bit. I want to go up to Bill. Will you stand up here? I've got to figure out a way to get around to you. Would you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
I'm Bill Lisson. I'm a residential counselor at the Bridge for Runaway Youth.
The Bridge is the only center dealing specifically right now in the Twin Cities area with children who have run from home.
Right.
You've listened to these people talk up here. You've heard two sides of the issue, pretty well split. Where do you come down on the views presented here?
Well, I like the views that the doctor said. I think there's stuff to be heard on both people's sides.
And I think that's an important point. What we're saying is that what they're saying sounds so different, but in fact there's a lot of similarity in what they're saying.
Absolutely.
You brought people here tonight, people who have been runaways, who are now working with you. What do you offer them? What can you do for them?
Well, we offer them shelter. We offer them a chance to slow down, take a look at what they're doing. Everybody needs to take a look at their part. The parents, the kids, people involved.
Tom Sawyer, will you stand up? What we're doing now is trying to introduce you to as many of the people in our audience as possible so you get a feeling for the kind of individuals who might be able to offer something to your questions. Tom, where are you from?
I'm from Minneapolis.
And you work with?
I work with the Bridge.
Can you tell us your opinion of these two sides of the question that have been presented?
Well, I think there's obviously two sides to the question. I think in some ways we're dealing with a different population. If we're dealing with a kid who's basically in a healthy, good, loving home, but is abusing drugs and getting abusive with parents, that's one thing. If we're dealing with a kid who's being victimized at home, is a victim of incest, a victim of sexual abuse, then we're dealing with a different population. And I think it's important to discriminate between the two.
Do you hear these people, though, does it sound polarized to you? Does it sound like Dotson saying, no, it's this way, and York saying that it's another way?
Yeah, I think to some extent, and I think part of that is to make a case on either side. I think there's a large middle ground, and I think that's where the bulk of the problem is. I think the parents need to set limits. I think the parents need to be responsible as parents. I think kids need to be allowed to grow up and be kids. And I think kids want some structure. But if you have a situation where the parent feels like they love the kid, but they're not communicating that, the kid doesn't feel that, the kid is going to respond differently than if that love is expressed in a way they can understand.
Dotson Rader, I'm a kid. You're my parent, and I say, you're not paying any attention to me, you don't love me, you've never beaten me, you've never had sex with me, but you don't pay any attention to me whatsoever. Mm-hmm. You don't love me, you won't let me stay out late. I'm getting out of here. Mm-hmm. I'm hitting the bricks. Mm-hmm. How does that fit into your scenario?
Well, children rarely say that, because most children are unwilling to bring to their parents anything that's hurtful. They're afraid of being spanked, punished, whatever. And you wouldn't say that to me. What you'd probably do is run, and you'd run for a day or two, and you'd come back. Most children run 3 or 4 times before they run for good. And you'd come back, and you'd judge my love for you by the amount of worry I have caused I mean, you have caused me. And I think, I mean, I was once asked on another television show about what do you do if the child was run away and come back home. Well, the child is run because he's suffered some sort of unendurable situation, and particularly in cases of sexual abuse. I mean, you'll have a father or a mother who will be sexually abusing one of the children, and the other parent won't be aware of it, because the father will say, well, don't tell anyone, or you're going to get yours, or it's just between us, and so on. And I think in a situation like that where you're having trouble with your child, is to get another adult, neutral adult in, a preacher or a school teacher, someone the child trusts, so he can, and then sit with that person and talk to the child, because the neutral adult there that the child trusts, he's going to be able to have the courage to tell you, if he's going to at all, what the problem is, because he knows he's not going to be smacked.
Okay, well, you're really clinging to that, then. You're saying that even in the situation as I described it, you're saying that there probably is something under there that is abusive. Before I go further, I'm going to come back to you. But we have somebody on the line. It is a young person. This young person is on the run. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
You're a young man. You are on the run. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Where are you running from?
I'm running from a treatment center. I'm
And
afraid to deal with, what I have to deal with.
how old are you?
I'm 15.
And you were in a treatment center. Did you run away from home before you reached the treatment center?
Yes, I did.
What do you want to say?
I'd like to know, why you don't deal with the kids more, their perspective.
Good point. You're offering one. What perspective would you like us to hear?
Well, why they left. Why did they leave?
Why did you leave?
I left because I was sexually abused.
You were sexually abused and you took off.
Yes, sir.
Were you abused by your father or your mother?
My mother.
Did you ever take that case to anyone in authority?
Yes, sir.
And what was the result of that?
Just, they talked to me about it and why. They asked me different questions about it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Should a kid run away in a situation like that?
If he's in the treatment center,
No.
from his home, if that's what he had to do to get what he needed, to go to a treatment center, he can run away. Okay.
No, let's forget the treatment center.
Should he run
He is
out on
being
the street?
sexually abused
No.
by his mother.
Okay. He needs to get help. If he's going to get it running out, that's fine. But we don't live in a society where a kid's going to get it by running away.
Where's the
He's
kid going to get it?
what was on that thing.
What is he supposed to do?
Okay, look, any kid today knows all the places to go, the runaway, the shelter, this. They don't think about it. They haven't got a clear head. They can't do it. They wound up with the family. That's correct. What we're saying, though, is I wish that kid wouldn't run. I wish his kid, he would go to a tough love group. I wish he would go to a neighbor. I wish he would do this. I wish he would do that, but he won't. So he's going to go on the street and he's going to go into a society that's like what we have. I can't offer you the cure-all. I know the kid's in a treatment center and it's real hard to deal with what he has to deal with, and that's where he needs to be at this point. But what I can say to you is he's going to run out on the street and get into worse trouble. And I don't know if that's an answer.
What if this parent went to a tough love group?
Mm-hmm.
The mother who was sexually abusing the boy.
Fine.
What if
Fine.
that? What would you tell her?
Because our groups are confrontative, okay, and they're going to find out what's going on. People are not stupid. We get that all the time, people who are abusing people, and they confront it. Then the group, if the parent doesn't want to deal with something, then the group goes to the social services or to whatever therapist the parent was sent from, okay, and that's what happens, and you get an agency begin to work with this family.
See, we think the community has got to get better organized than it has and stop waiting for some federal agency, a state agency, to organize the community for you, because they won't do it.
This is an aspect we haven't
That's
discussed
right.
much
Right.
on what the Yorks do. Talk about that
Okay.
community use of people.
Yeah, I just want to, excuse me,
Interrupting as usual.
This is tough love.
I just want to say that, up in Seattle, we had a workshop. There were about 100 people last year. And right out of that workshop, a single mom came and she said, my kid is on the strip. I know where she is. I can't get a hold of her. The cops seem to miss her. She's with a pimp, and I know it. And the 4 dads left that meeting, went with that mother. Mother pointed out where the kid was. They waited around. They got the kid, and they took her home. That kid has been home for almost a year and a half now. Okay, and that community has been working with that kid. That kid's not alone. She has other people working with it. The mother has other people. That kid's home.
Well, what do you do? I was in Seattle twice, and part of the reason we picked Seattle, I mean, Parade, when we did the cover stories, because Seattle is the chief center for kiddie porn, manufactured kiddie porn in the United States. There are 30,000 children runaways on the street, first and post, you know the area. And let me give you 2 examples very quickly. One was a girl named Jody, who's now dead. She was murdered outside of Stockton, California. She'd be 16 years old today. She ran away when she was 12.
Away from what, Doctor?
From a suburb of Seattle to downtown Seattle.
What was the cause of her running away?
Because her father kept beating her up.
Okay.
And she has 3 other siblings. And she ran away. A month later, her little brother ran away because he was abused. By the way, in child abuse cases, physical abuse, I'm talking about sexual abuse, it's usually multi-sibling families with more than one child. And almost entirely, it's just one child at a time that's abused. And when that child finally runs, within a few weeks, the abusive parent or parents pick on another child, and they abuse him until he runs. So her little brother ran. She met a pimp at Post, lived in Chinatown. He said he wanted her to babysit. She had 2 other little girls there. One had a child, a little baby. She babysat for 2.5 months. Then she was turned into turning tricks. He ran a tourist business for Japanese tourists, and as part of the tour package, you came into San Francisco, and as part of the package, you were taken up to Seattle one night, and you got to screw a little white girl. Now, when I went to Seattle, I reported that to the police and to the mayor of Seattle. His name is Royer. He's going to run for governor of that state. When I went back to Seattle 9 months ago, the guy was still in business with other girls, and Jody was dead. And she'd been, well, it's getting too involved.
The point.
Now, her point is her parents knew she was hooking. She'd go home on Christmas and on her birthday. They knew she was down there hooking. Another little boy, whose father is one of the highest officials of the government of Seattle, lives in Kirkland, ran away when he was 12. He's still hustling on the streets of Seattle. His father knows he's down there. He talks to his father on the phone every couple of weeks. Okay. Now, do those, you send those children back home? Aren't those parents responsible? Why don't those parents give a damn? Why are the majority of children run away not reported by their parents?
Excellent point. But what I don't want to do tonight is hear stories and anecdotes about that would support your point and those that would support your point, because there is a mid-area in here, and we're going to get to it. We have some people sitting here that we need to talk about. I think that affects even more. If there's 1 million kids on the street, I wouldn't know the statistics, but it seems there are more issues in the mid-level that we're going to deal with. And so if I could ask that let's try to respond to questions. Try not to tell stories that support it if we can't, because it's taken up a little bit of time, even more than I'm taking up right now. So we're going to be back with more of the show in just a moment.
All over the country, Americans are reading the nation's newspaper.
Every day, across the USA, see the day. A different way.
USA Today brings you the nation's most interesting news in 4 colorful sections. Get a fast read in minutes, or enjoy it all day.
USA Today brings you the USA.
Volkswagen announces a new concept. Too much car for the money. Introducing the Wolfsburg Limited Edition Rabbit. Your choice of automatic or 5-speed stick with fuel injection, power steering, velour seats, and much, much more. This car should cost a small fortune, but now you can get this car for only $69.90. The Wolfsburg Limited Edition Rabbit.
We've been discussing the trouble surrounding what appears to be an ever-increasing problem of people running away. A moment ago, when I presented myself as a child to Dotson Rader's parent, and I said, hey, I'm fed up, I'm hurting, you don't pay any attention, and you said, Kids don't do that.
I said rarely do.
Rarely do they do that. We have parents here. Karen, you want to stand up and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Karen Mord, and we're one of the 12%. And our child did come to that. And I'd like to say something about parental abuse. Parents get their intellect and their ears raped just like kids do. And there's a very important thing. I don't want to play the blame game. We're not going to accomplish anything. There's some beautiful kids here that have problems. We've got hurting parents all over. They're listening. And let's get on with the business. What can we do to help? Tough love is a solution. The Wilder Clinic is marvelous. That's one of our solutions, along with tough love. And I'd like to hear from some of the kids.
That's where I'm going right now, Karen. Thank you. I'm going to walk in front of the camera here, if I may, and I'm going to step over here and just work down the line, if I can. Benita, I'd like to start with you. I presented a case. The case was, folks, you're not paying any attention to me. Then the young man called on the phone, said he was a runaway, and said, why don't you present more of the kid's view? You ran away, right?
No, I haven't ran away.
Why are you at the bridge?
I'm not at the bridge.
Well, where are you, Benita?
I'm at the youth diversion.
Youth diversion, I'm sorry. At youth diversion, you had trouble in your family.
No, the trouble was me.
Now, that's an interesting perspective. Did you think when it all started that the trouble was you, or did you ever think that it was caused by something else?
No, I just want to be grown, so I did what I wanted to do.
How did your parents react to that?
They was mad. But they still love me, and they still tell me that.
Why do you find yourself in this group called youth diversion?
Would I do what?
Why are you there? Why are you in youth diversion?
No comment.
All right. How about you, Carmen?
Because me and my parents wasn't getting along, and I ran away from home.
Did you ever tell them why you weren't getting along? Did you ever tell them what you were missing in that household?
No, but I did tell them that I wanted to go into a foster home, go into a different home.
Was it an abusive situation at your house?
Before, but not when with my dad, because I was living with my dad and my parents were divorced.
Did you ever run away?
Yes, I had. I feel that it's both between me and my dad. I feel like I love my dad a lot and he loves me a lot. But at the time, I didn't think that he was showing it to me, and I wanted him to show it to me. And I think one of the ways I was doing was by running off and trying to hurt him. I was trying to get back to him to see how much he did love me.
Are you saying, Carmen, that when you ran away and then showed up again, it seemed like your dad paid more attention to you and acted more like he loved you when you came back?
No.
He didn't? Then how did you feel that you were getting to him?
I wanted to see how much he cared. I felt like one way a person's gonna, that they care is by how much they're concerned or how much they're gonna go after you when you really need them. And that's what I wanted to see.
Cindy, did you ever run away?
Yes.
Why did you run away?
'Cause me and my parents don't really have a relationship, and when I ran and I'd come back, I'd get more attention from them.
They would. They'd pay more attention to you when you came home.
Yeah.
Did they kind of walk softly around you and kind of ask you if there was anything you needed or pay a lot of attention to your needs?
Yeah, they did.
They didn't do that before you ran away?
Uh-uh.
Or at least not to your satisfaction?
No.
Did you ever tell them what you wanted, what it was you needed that they weren't giving you?
No.
You kind of expected them to know?
Yeah.
That kind of fits into what you people would say, isn't it? That the kids would expect the parent to know what to do?
Without talking, right. And when you get to be a certain age, like 12, 13, 14, you have things in your head that your parent can't mind read, and it's real hard on some parents to be able to do that.
There's a lot of expectation that parents are supposedly these wonderful people who can communicate and share everything, and there are lots of us as adults who can't. We don't have that skill. We don't have that ability. We're closed off. We have our own problems, and we're not able to relate in the way our kids say we are supposed to relate, or television tells them we're supposed to relate. We all have to raise a Leave It to Beaver like we saw before, and families aren't like that.
Let me take another call here. Caller, you're on the line right now. This is Don Shelby.
Yes?
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Do you have something you'd like to add or ask?
Well, yes, I've been watching the program. I originally called in to ask what effect divorce might have on a child's running or not running, and it occurs to me as I listen to your conversation back and forth that kids aren't really dumb, and as I was raising my kids, I'm a divorced parent, and I have 5 children, but while I was in the home, I expressed to my children almost weekly that this is the first shot I've ever had at raising children, and I might screw up, and I am likely to apologize to you when I make mistakes. But as the man mentioned just a little while ago, some of us don't have the capacity to communicate to our children the way they would like to, and sometimes, you know, kids are pretty hip, and they can cause the parents just a nightmare, and it isn't true. The things they do to their parents, you know, it never gets written up, but, you know, I don't mean to play down the abused child, because that breaks my heart and everyone else's, I'm sure. I guess I just see the whole thing as the abused child ought to have protection, as the one man is saying, but the abused parent ought to be understood as well. I told my kids I won't take any credit if you become the President of the United States, nor will I take the credit if you become pimps and prostitutes.
Thank you. We have another caller on the line. Are you there, caller?
Yes.
This is Don Shelby. Would you like to tell us what you want to add?
Well, I guess I'm interested right now in knowing why do they, when you're looking for help, why sometimes it gets to be that the parents turn out to be the ones that feel like they're being blamed.
Why is the blame put on the parent in those situations involving kids? Do I have your question right?
Yes.
All right. Phyllis?
Yeah, I think that what happens is parents feel blame. I think that there's a lot of poor therapy going around. I think there's a lot of guilt on the part of parents. I think that when they come in, they expect to be blamed because they feel very guilty. And the therapy or the counselor or the youth worker does not help to alleviate that, because many therapies believe that you deal with the marriage of the couple. And when, from our own experience, both as therapists and as clients, as therapists, we thought we were wonderful. As clients, we found out that we really felt when people said, you know, look at your marriage, and there were things, and we were battling over the kids, and we didn't know how to raise these kids in this time. And we were battling and getting into trouble. When they said to us, hey, it's your marriage, what we said to each other was, blaming each other, we said, aha, if we would have been better, then this wouldn't have happened. So you get a very subtle message of guilt when people begin to deal with your relationship or with who you are as a person. Okay, but when somebody would say to me, your kids are really a wreck, and you ain't holding on to them, and you're not doing this, and let me help guide you. It's not your fault. It's just that everybody's in the same kind of boat today. Then I felt, oh, God, somebody's going to teach me how to deal with my kid, and that felt good.
The bottom line is that it seems parents are made to feel like they ought to know how to do it, and
Right.
that their kids ought to turn out just perfect.
Right, and there's such expectations on parents as well as on young people. Young people also expect so much from parents that it's silly. I mean, it's ridiculous. I wish I could be all that, but I can't.
Let me take one more phone call here for this 15-minute section. We've got a person on the line, a female. Your caller, you're on.
Okay, I'd like to direct this to the Yorks. Number one, I thoroughly disagree with you when you say parents are not to blame, because they are role models, and kids do look up at their parents to what they're going to be and what they want to be. And I was a runaway, and I started running away when I was 9 years old. I was into prostitution. I was into drugs really heavy. I don't understand coming from a normal family. See, I never came from one. Another thing is I ran in the street gangs, and one thing that I came to the conclusion of is I just simply didn't care anymore. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about life. I didn't care about anybody. And when I went into a center, and they would have said to me, what kind of respect did you give your parents? You know, or what about your parents? I didn't want to hear that, because I hated my parents. I didn't want anything to do with my parents. I wanted to talk about me, you know.
How did you get into prostitution?
My father got me into prostitution. And
How do you do that?
my dad was an alcoholic, and he pretty much sold me to these people who wanted me to pull tricks. So it's the home life I came in. I was raised into witchcraft, and I was raised into Satan worshiping ever since I was a baby. And my father was into Satan worshiping really heavy. He was known as a high priest in the temples. And this was the upbringing that I had. My mother died when I was 7 years old of cancer. And it seemed like when she died, my whole world did too. You know, so I was not raised from the normal family. I had a lot of bitterness. I had a lot of hate. I had a lot of resentment. I tried to kill myself on many occasions. I had nobody that I could talk to. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. And I started treating people the way that I felt inside. You know, I was hurting. I wanted them to hurt too. But at the same time, you know, I can look inside of myself, and I was saying, somebody please love me. Somebody please accept me for what I am. Please help me to deal with what's going on inside me. I want to be a being. You know, I want to smile. I want to be happy. I want to know what is life all about. Now, if someone's going to sit there and tell me, what do you think about your parents, or what did you do to your parents, and what could you do now to make it better? You know, you don't want to hear that. When you're running on the street and you're scared, and you got threats over your head, and nobody can tell me just because some parents come up and say, my kid does this and my kid does that, and he's rebellious and he does that, and you have a father or a mother who's been into incest with their child, but they're not going to admit and say, yeah, see, well, I molested my daughter, but we're not going to talk about this, and this is why my daughter responds in a hateful way, you know, and she's running around with a lot of fear. You want to get into a home, and you want people to support you, and you want people to show you this is what life is all about. This is what love's all about, and if you screw up, sweetheart, it's okay. Pick yourself back up and start all over again. We're going to stand by you. We're going to support you. You know, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And the first thing to breaking through a lot of that ice is for the person that's gone through how to say, hey, I hate you. I'm bitter. I'm angry. I've been hurt, and how dare you abuse me and put me through the hell that you put me through. Because then you're going to break through the ice a little bit, and you can start dealing with a lot of that, because you're going to bring out a lot of the feelings behind that you've carried around with you all of your life. And it might take 2 years, and it might take 5 years. I'm 28 now, and I have a daughter, and I have a husband. You know, and they support me. You know, I mean, my husband is working with me, and he knows my fears. Well, I'm working through them, and when I feel like I can't handle it, and I want to run, and I just want to say, I can't go on with this anymore, and pressure's getting up on me too hard, I go and I find somebody to talk to, whether it be a pastor or a friend or whoever. I talk about it. I get it off.